then it's about creating a supportive group around you that are relating to each other in heart language. And if you could explain what this heart language is.
Well, it all starts with each one of us. So I have to start with me. I have to feel if my heart is open, and that's a moment to moment process throughout the day. Am I shut down or is my heart open? And then I want to build sustainability. Do I feel my heart coming through my voice as I'm speaking to people? Do I feel like I'm in a state of awareness about who these other people are and what their foibles are, so that I'm sensitive to them? So I'm not in a concept about it, I'm in a feeling of it. So I have to feel my heart being open. That can't just be something in my head. Being a good person is not the same as having one's heart open. And that's a crucial point, because our culture is full of all kinds of rules and principles and behaviors that address the whole cultural pattern of being a good person. The open heart is a feeling state, and it's moment to moment. And sometimes you may do things from an open heart that don't match those cultural parameters. But that's the journey of the open heart. You get to see in your own experience what it is.
That brings up questions because, we're placed on this earth, right, to have a certain journey, most likely. And then perhaps part of the obstacle is to realize that by following along with the crowd or the collective unit, you're really not pursuing what you're really authentically here to do. Do you find that happens quite often, that it takes people a while to adjust away from the collective? And what if they don't?
It's a shock at first. And in our work, whether it's private work or classes, we ask people to go straight into their own hearts and ask them what it actually feels like, so that we leave the good person collective ideology over there outside the door, and you can pick it up on your way out. That's fine. But for right now, we just want to know what it feels like inside you. And so we'll build on that over and over. What does it feel like now? What does it feel like now? And then we use a spectrum of contexts. Like, how do you feel when you're petting your new kitten? How do you feel when you're standing outside in the traffic? And the cars are rushing by you. How do you feel when you hear the fire engine go by? So, the heart open in a variety of contexts starts to build that sustainability and that continuity. And that's how you do it. But it doesn't match the good person pattern.
Well, a lot of people might wonder about this because they are doing things for the community, they're doing things for their family, they're doing things that are to the benefit of others. Mm-hmm. So how can you explain what the highest purpose of awareness is if they look to their own unique path as opposed to the collective realm? If they look to their unique path, then what is the highest purpose of awareness that then brings them up to actually a benevolent place again?
It's feeling. It's that simplest of things. It's being able, if you're in service, for example, and your life looks like you're being the best of the good people, the issue for me is always, what do you feel as you go throughout the day? If you're working in a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, is that tokenism for you, that you're doing something dutiful to make a social contribution and get on camera for 5 minutes? Or is that something you really feel moved to do, to engage people less fortunate, because it touches you deeply and it really wakes you up for a while longer? That's a really important point of discernment. But no one can say about another person, where it's coming from. We have to ask.
Have you ever had a question that you presented to someone to get them to remember a place in their heart when they felt incredibly open and connected to their own being, and even more connected to everything around them? Is there a question that you would put to people to have them anchor in a moment that felt that open?
Oh, absolutely. And people say things like, being at a concert at the Hollywood Bowl, listening to some spiritual teacher speak, or listening to music, watching a sunset over the beach, and things like that, where they didn't feel any separation from anything because their thoughts were gone for that period of time. They were just having a pure, direct experience. But as you're suggesting here, having those pure experiences gives us something to work toward. If I could have that pure experience at the Hollywood Bowl, why can't I have it sitting in my backyard? And if I now practice having it in my backyard, what is that pure experience? What does it feel like? So we keep going round and round. We're always back to what does it feel like? And then we need words to describe it, because each of us may have different descriptions of that pure experience, even though we're sitting here sharing it.
And you and I have talked before about how do you take this state of being and carry it to move forward in your life with your career? Because I think sometimes people believe that this is the way to live if you're in Tibet on the mountain, but how in a westernized country do we take this quality and check in and yet move forward with our creating our dreams, so to speak?
I think that it's the same thing as at the Hollywood Bowl, as in the backyard, as in the job interview, as in the audition, as in going to work and filling out forms for bureaucrats. It's all the same thing. It's just a different context. And the issue then is, as you're more and more present, what do you feel is really moving you inside? Because what you do becomes so separated from who you are as you get more advanced in awareness work that it becomes impossible not to check in with your authenticity. What's really here to be lived? What does it feel like is really trying to be expressed or experienced? And how does one make a living doing that? It's a question that comes up all the time. But we have to reinvent ourselves from the inside out. So the practical steps are, what is it that's really moving you? And then what steps would you take to start to do that thing? And then how would you begin to establish remuneration for that thing that you feel so passionate about doing?
I'm fortunate that I'm around many artists, actors, writers, directors, producers, all sorts of different artists. And what comes up for me is their feeling like an inability to bridge the gap between being on their path, which they're committed to, and finding the way to get there. So for instance, someone will say, well, I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to begin. And what I typically ask is, well, if you did know, where would you start? But how would you guide someone to start at getting back in touch with that higher sense of knowing what the steps are, or looking for them in the right way?
When you ask that question, what kind of response does that elicit? It's a really interesting question. If you knew, what would you do? How do people respond to that?
It depends on the person. I think ultimately I'm trying to ask people to get out of their head, try to get out of their looking for solutions, as opposed to an innate sense of intuitively knowing what the next step is. And it's just trying to help people make a shift to a different state of consciousness to look for the questions. And sometimes people go that direction and sometimes they don't, but at least the question's been asked, that they really do know what to do.
And I think that's the point, is that we typically say, I don't know what to do. It's just an automatic, ego-driven response. But again, awareness does know. Awareness knows what the steps are. But they're on a different rhythm than the way the mind wants it, because our ego mind is agitated, quick, wants everything right now, and then also doesn't know. And you hear a lot of that kind of self-talk But in awareness, one has to be still and wait and be patient, and then all of a sudden something moves into alignment. And it feels like, oh, this person has the next step. Or, oh, the phone just rang and it was so and so, and they have a project. Or the other alternative is being free enough to feel the move to initiate something so that it comes out of you to do something creative and then bring people in to be involved in it. So it's about activating what's really inside people and then finding people in the environment that are a match for what you want to be doing, and to also bring in sources of remuneration, because we all have to live in the world.